Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the One and O podcast. I'm Joel Haas.
I'm Lyle Alenstein.
I'm Lexie Linderman.
Today, we're going to be talking about some recent news, including the $700 million renovations coming to Beaver Stadium soon. So I guess we'll get started with that. What are your guys' kind of initial reactions to the news? They voted on it a couple days ago. They approved it. So it'll start pretty much immediately, and then it's supposed to be finished by the 2027 season. What are your guys' reactions to that?
Yeah, I think it's good that it got approved. I know when we were on the meeting with all the trustees, there was a little bit of backlash. I think
That
going
was
into
funny, dude.
yeah,
That
it was
was fun.
a
They were
little bit
getting into it, and it
yeah,
was it was really long too. It was like,
yeah. So I never really attended anything like that before. A bunch of people, talking like that, but it was entertaining to say the least. Me personally, I know they have the reasons and they're entitled to it, but for me, it doesn't make sense. They need to, I like learn ball, I guess. But because I just think overall, Beaver Stadium needs the renovations. I remember some of the trustees when they were describing the current state of it, they used phrases like embarrassing, like it was eye opening when they saw it, and I even disappointed was thrown around in there. So when you're the people that are responsible for this movement and in charge of how Beaver Stadium progresses throughout its existence pretty much, and they're using words like that. I just thought that was my overall like, okay, this is a good thing that it's getting improved.
I've been going to games since Beaver since I was like 4, and the fact that the stadium has looked the exact same from when I was 4 to like 14 years later, I mean that's obviously, a big problem. So I definitely think it's a long time coming. And I think all the improvements are just going to be in the long run so much better. I mean, it's going to be good for recruiting. It's going to be good for all prospective students, especially with that 21,000 square foot welcome center, I think it was. That's going to be huge. And it's just going to be overall just a nicer stadium. And I think, yeah, it's definitely been a long time coming, and it's just good to see. I mean, it passed obviously easily. So, I mean, everyone kind of has been waiting for this, and I'm glad that it's finally here for Penn State.
yeah, I think they said the last like major renovation was 2001, so before we were born. Everyone knew that like we needed this. Like you can walk through
Mhm.
the stadium and there's just like exposed like pipes and like just random metal beams and stuff. It's not one of the top stadiums visually. Yeah, I mean even like the press box, dude, it can be scary sometimes when it's like a bigger game. Sometimes the press box will start shaking. I don't know, just some of the ramps and things like that. They said they wanted to improve like the access and kind of increase like elevators, escalators, things like that, which will be useful. They also talked about renovating the press box, so that would be awesome because I got to go to like Illinois, Maryland, Ohio State last year, and Penn State definitely had the worst, like by far the worst press box. Even stadiums with like a capacity of like 40,000 had much nicer press boxes. And even just the entire stadium itself. A lot of it's really outdated. And I think from the renderings, they're going to be putting in a lot of like actual seating with like back seats instead of just like the bleachers, which I think is nice for a lot of Penn State's fans. A lot of big changes. I know you guys mentioned the Welcome Center. I think that's pretty big for recruiting. Because like Ali Krieger was at the meeting, like she's one of the trustees. And she said when they were recruiting her for the soccer team, like they took her to Beaver Stadium as part of her recruitment process, and like she got to see it. And that was like part of the reason why she decided to come to Penn State. They were basically telling her like these are the environments you're going to be playing in front of. So in order to kind of, keep it up to par with other stadiums, I think this was definitely necessary.
Yeah, and I think a big part too is the winterization they're doing to it too. I mean, obviously they're anticipating a playoff game at some point in the future, so obviously they got to have the structure for that. But then also it opens the door for like a lot of other really cool events that they could have there. I mean, like you could see like Penn State hockey playing like an outdoor game in Beaver Stadium, which would just be sick, or like an NHL Winter Classic or anything like that. So it really opens the doors for a lot of things, not just like, the football team and like recruiting everything. It's just going to be huge in general, just for Penn State as a whole. And it's going to be interesting to see like what else they are able to do with, access during the winter.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know Carmen Starachi was pushing for like a wrestling match in Beaver Stadium, which would be pretty crazy. Like, I kind of wonder what the attendance would be like because we know they sell out at the BJC with like
Mhm.
15,000. So I kind of wonder like what kind of crowd they could draw at Beaver for a big wrestling match.
I think the wrestling would be sick. I think obviously there's a
Mhm.
lot of factors that go into it with like the weather and everything. I mean, but Nebraska's not Nebraska. I know they just did, but they just did volleyball this past year in their
Yeah.
stadium. but I know Iowa's done it in the past, and I believe Rutgers for wrestling. So, and then obviously just like with the winterization aspect, I think it's a larger thing, not just for football and all these events going forward, but it's just like we saw what Luke Combs just did this past weekend. And I think Beaver Stadium is just going to ultimately be more of a generating revenue with all these kind of events. Because I know Pat Kraft talked about bringing in money using Beaver Stadium for other ways right when he got to Penn State last year. And I think this is another big thing with the winterization, because when we were at the blue-white game and we walked in, we were in the press box, we saw the winterization going on with the pipes. We had no idea what it was, but we went over, we got confirmation. And I think it's just a good thing to see it's in the process, and that it's actually being renovated and it's got all this approval. I think the timeline said by 2025, I believe, I could be wrong, that the winter is, or that west side is going to be finished, but they want to get it finished now in case there's a chance that Penn State has the playoff game. And obviously that's a possibility because graduation's already been moved up, they're moved up one day just because of the chance that Penn State can have the playoff game this year. So I think that's a good thing that they're getting that underway.
Yeah, I think that's huge, because if they didn't get it like up to regulation standards, like with the winterization, they wouldn't have been able to host a playoff game at Beaver Stadium. So like if they did finish in that, was it 5 to 8 range in the final rankings, I think the rule is you get to choose where it's played. So for most teams, they're just going to pick their home stadium, obviously. But if it wasn't like up to standard, they would have had to pick, I think, a different stadium. So they probably would have gone to the Steelers or something. Yeah, so that's kind of huge because Penn State's pretty much been hovering around that range for the last, I don't know, 7-8 years, where they're always in that like top 10 borderline range. So yeah, I mean, if they can finish 5 through 8 this year, which there's a decent chance they will, just kind of looking around, looking at their schedule, I mean, I don't see more than 2 losses. So that probably, 10-2, 11-1 range, that puts you right in that like 5 through 8 spot where you're probably hosting a playoff game, or maybe 9 through 12, and then they go, and they're the road team for a playoff game at a different team stadium. But yeah, I mean, it's something that needed to be done, especially with the changing playoff rules, because a home playoff game in Beaver Stadium, like that's going to be insane. I know when they're doing point spreads for betting, they'll do home field advantage is typically worth like 3 points, but I think the whiteout is usually like 5 to 6 points. Like they pretty much double the average like point spread difference at Beaver. And then if you amp that up for a playoff game, I assume they'll probably make it another whiteout. That environment's that could, change the outcome of a game.
I'm interested to see though, like, because they're demolishing like basically like the west side, I think is what they said, and like they're putting in temporary seating. So I'm curious to see like how that, if like that has any effect on like attendance, if like people don't want to sit in like temporary seating like that. But other than that, I think just like all the changes together, like especially it's going to be done in 3 years, like 2027, before 2027 season. So I feel like that's a pretty good turnaround, especially for how different it looks in the renderings like from now. So I think it's just a good plan overall. And the renderings look good too. Like I think it's gonna look clean for sure. And it's gonna definitely, boost revenue and all that, like we said. So
yeah, I think just because you were talking about the west side, and that's mainly the focus right now with taking away the seating, but I think they want to keep the attendance basically around that above 100,000. And I think that's going to be something to look at, because obviously you can't really touch or come close to what that crowd atmosphere is like at Beaver Stadium. But I know they want to keep it above 100,000, and that's important. But I really think that the temporary seating thing is going to be a big factor, because this is mainly the west side. It is not mainly, just is the west side, and that doesn't really affect the student section. I mean, I'm obviously on the beat this year, not going to see me washed up in the student section. I'll be in the press box, but like, I just think the other side of the stadium is important, because that's where you get all the fans, all the alumni, all the people that are just like, hey, I want to go see a Penn State football game. So I think this year and within the coming years, I think that's going to be an important thing to look at if that really like affects the overall attendance.
Yeah, they dropped like the timeline for the renovation. So I was interested in like seeing what was happening, and they didn't really tell us anything, because they have 2025 as start west side demolition / rebuild phase 1. And then 2026 is west side demolition / rebuild phase 2. And then 2027 is west side demolition / rebuild phase 3. So they managed to not really tell us anything, but we do know that the west side is getting demolished. That's the one thing we know. And it will be rebuilt. So that's really all they told us there. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. We'll definitely get some more like information as we move forward. And we'll keep you guys updated, obviously, with anything we hear. All right. Also, EA Sports dropped the trailer for the new College Football 25 video game. Penn State made a couple of appearances in it. We got to see the whiteout crowd, a little bit of Beaver Stadium, and then the drum major doing the flip before the game. What are your guys' kind of thoughts on the game and the trailer?
I think it looked really clean. It looked really nice. The whiteout, I think, it looked it looked really like accurate. Like I feel like, like if I had seen that like on YouTube and like not known it was like a trailer for a video game, I would have thought that was like real. And I also think the players look really like clean too. I think it all just looks really clean. I'm excited to see like how the whiteout has like an effect on like actually like the game because it looks like crazy in like the trailer. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think my initial reaction to Penn State's appearances were I thought they got the whiteout looked pretty good. I thought the drumline flip looked really good. Obviously, you could see the internet was doing its thing. If the whiteout, you zoomed in on the scoreboard, you saw Ohio State was the opponent. So I think you could take that how you will. I just thought that was interesting to see, or if that was just what they put in. But no, I thought the graphics looked really cool. I think when you saw the players walk out of the tunnel, the linking in the arms, I think those were AI generated, like not specific to anyone on the roster. But I think it looked really good on initial impact. Obviously, you saw some things. You saw the S zone highlighted in the whiteout portion, so I thought it was cool. I mean, you guys could go check out my article at psucollegian.com to see some things that I hope to see in the game that are Penn State related. But yeah, I think overall, I think Penn State's appearances were they got it really like down pat, and I think overall the game itself with like just all the other teams and stadiums, I thought it looked pretty cool. I'm excited for it.
I think what stands out to me the most is like the attention to detail that they put into the game, like trying to get every team's unique traditions. Because I think that's part of like what makes college football so special is like all those traditions and different things, the pageantry of the sport, and things like that. So I thought it was really cool that they got, like the flip before the game and like the S zone, like you mentioned, kind of those little details. So it'll be interesting, obviously we didn't get much. It was like a 2-minute video and we had like 4 seconds of Penn State footage. Um, and as far as we know, I think every Penn State player is going to be opting in. I mean, we haven't heard of anyone who isn't. And everyone who's been asked said they were. And then I'll also be interested to see like Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, and I think Keandre Lambert Smith all signed like separate NIL deals with EA because every player gets like the like $600 base deal and like free copy of the game when they like opt in. But then EA also signed deals with like individual players for like special marketing events and things like that. And I think those were the three like Penn State players who signed. KLS obviously no longer with the team, so it'll be interesting to see what they do there. It'll also be interesting to see how they handle transfers, like having to update the rosters in the game and things like that. But I'm anticipating some more stuff from at least Drew and Nick regarding the game. So I would stay tuned for like some stuff coming out from those guys, whether it's just, marketing the game or some kind of special thing with that. But we do know that they have like special deals on top of just the like basic being in the game. So maybe they'll appear in like some kind of commercial or advertisement down the line. All right. The Elite 11 camp has also been going on. They recently had their stop in State College. A lot of Penn State commits, a lot of Penn State targets, even former Penn State offensive coordinator Mike Yursich were there. So a lot of kind of Penn State ties to that. Obviously, it was located right downtown at the high school. We got to see kind of a preview of some of Penn State's commits. Got to see them in action a little bit. Obviously, no pads, wasn't live action, anything like that. So you don't want to read too much into it, but it was kind of a good view into the 2025 class and beyond. Kind of what Penn State has coming in. I thought Matt Henderson had a really good showing, the tight end. Made some nice catches there, and earned some praise from the guys there. Obviously, it's more of a quarterback based camp. The Elite 11, they name like 11 top quarterbacks at the end, but it's still a good opportunity to kind of see what the pass catchers can do. So I thought Henderson had a good showing there on the receiving end. And what did you guys kind of see from the camp?
On the throwing end of that, we saw Penn State commit Beckham Kritza, along with Missouri commit Matt Zollers, who Penn State missed out on, obviously, and then uncommitted Blake Washington, but definitely a target for Penn State. I thought Kritza looked pretty good. I mean, he showed off the arm strength for sure. It's hard to take a lot away though from a camp like that. You know, they're just kind of throwing to pretty much open guys and like all that. So it's hard to take a lot away. There isn't much to see from his high school career so far. But he has his senior season coming up, so I feel like that's gonna show more of what Penn State has on their hands rather than what happened at Elite 11. But I thought Zollers and Washington also looked really good, a little bit better than Kritza. So Zollers obviously still a big loss for Penn State, but it's interesting to see if Penn State will target another quarterback and if they get Washington and all that. So
I thought Kritza was able to throw the ball to the same class of 2025 teammate, wide receiver Lyric Samuel. So I thought that was cool. Again, a little glimpse of the future, seeing them hook up for a couple passes. You also saw Kritza get a rep at wide receiver in one clip. So I don't know if they want to look at that, addressing him as a wide receiver to fix this so-called problem. But there is that. But I thought it was cool to see Samuel, 4-star lone receiver currently in that class for Penn State. So and he seemed, from what I've heard, he was pretty locked in to Penn State, not really looking anywhere else. So that's good, I guess, to move forward for Marcus Hagans. But yeah, so he showed some good speed. I saw a couple of good contested catches, a couple of good routes, like corners and posts where he beat corners and had some good separation. So I thought that was cool to see. But I thought that my overall thing was just, I thought it was big to have him and Kritza connecting for the first time. I actually don't know if it was the first time, but just to see that in action in State College, just with all the coaches around, being able to see that, I thought that was cool. Obviously, Samuel, I know he was coming off MVP at the Under Armour camp in New Jersey. So, and being able to come away with the MVP honors, so that's cool. But I think those are two guys that have spoken highly about being leaders in the class, trying to build that 2025 group. So I thought that was just a good sight to see them have on campus and throwing and catching together.
All right. That's it for today's episode. Thank you guys for watching the 1-0 podcast. I'm Joel Haas.
I'm Lyle Alenstein.
I'm Lexie Linderman.
For more football coverage, you can find us at psucollegian.com and follow us on socials. We'll see you next time.